Everyone was trying to short Bitcoin yesterday because of the recent war escalations, but I told you that I would be going long. In yesterday's video, Bitcoin was right below $99,000, and now we are just below 104K. In today's video, we'll be talking about what just happened, why did Bitcoin pump, and we'll also be talking about what I'm expecting next. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Let's jump right into the video. So first of all, as we can see, Bitcoin got a beautiful bounce from not only the bottom of this range, but also from the fair value gap, which was the gap that we used for our trade setup in my community. Now, what I wanted to show you, just so you know I'm not bullshitting you if you're new to the channel, let's roll the clip. I still think that there is a little bit of upside here. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to go all the way up to an all-time high. I actually don't think this is the case, but I do think that we could be talking about potentially retracing half of this candle before going ahead and moving lower. I mean, we see this time and time again on a weekly time frame. Bitcoin prints a very ugly red candle, and the next weekly candle makes it all the way to the top of the body of that previous candle. So keep your eyes on this. The reason I want you to pay attention to this is simply because the liquidation maps are concerning. And we went on to talk about how there was way more liquidity to the upside, and it seemed too obvious to actually enter a Bitcoin long. Everyone freaking out about the war, and you know what the market makers like to do: push Bitcoin higher. And right now we are actually sitting right around the resistance that I talked about in yesterday's video. We got a massive pump, and in my community, a lot of you entered the Bitcoin long around $99,000. Then we pumped all the way up to just under 104K as I'm recording this video. By the way, if you want to join my community where we're posting a lot of trade setups, you do have the first link in my description down below. As you can see here, the P&L was quite exceptional, and a lot of our community members were winning tons. Over and over and over again, lots of people were sharing their P&Ls. This was an excellent trade from the bottom of the fair value gap. Easy execution, especially with all the liquidity to the upside. It seemed obvious. I don't know if you remember, but in yesterday's video, I talked about how there was 8 times more shorts in the market than longs. And so we know that we were going to target that liquidity. Now, what is next for Bitcoin? Because sure, we held on to the fair value gap. How aggressive can this pump really get? First of all, my base case has already played out. We made our way back to the mid-range of this previous weekly candle. So can we go higher? Well, it's a possibility because we know that the wicks can sometimes go as high as the body of that previous candle. And so if we were to go to the top of this body here, that would actually put Bitcoin above $105,000. And if we go on these shorter time frames here, what I want to show you is that we did get a very aggressive move. How about let's even look at the 4-hour chart just to show you what I'm talking about. So we got the bounce and we actually entered the long right around here in my free community, and then we pumped, and then we had a massive retest downwards before another explosive move to the upside. So I think that right now, Bitcoin is in a little bit of a tricky predicament because the higher and higher that we go, the more confident people will get and they will be going long. But if we go back and take a look at the liquidation heat map, it is still overwhelmingly short in this market, despite the fact that today everyone went long. We zoom out, look at the 30-day. What does it tell you? There is around $12.5 billion worth of cumulative short liquidation leverage. On the left here, there is about $5 billion worth of cumulative long liquidation leverage. So this still tells me that we can go higher. However, I would start to get a little bit cautious here, especially if you're trying to enter a long right now, because we know that we can get some nasty wicks to the downside. And honestly, this was one of the highest risk to reward trades you could have done, targeting a much higher level from below 100K. We know we get these nasty wicks below ranges. The next time that we actually do target this range though, I will say this and put this on record, I do think that we will ultimately break this range and we will set a new range into the choppy summer. However, everything is pointing right now to Bitcoin wanting to move higher, especially with what happened in terms of the war escalations, which we'll go over shortly. If we're repeating a similar choppy summer to last year, there is a strong likelihood here that maybe this is ultimately the range that we're looking at for the summer, and Bitcoin will be headed a little bit lower as we continue to chop around over the course of the summer. Now, this could put Bitcoin way down into the mid 90K level, and I still think that this is a possibility this summer, with the lows more likely to be around the August timeframe. Now, the reason I say that is because, first of all, we saw it last summer when Bitcoin went ahead and actually went down to $49,000 on this wick near the beginning of August. And I also think that the bull market support band will play its role for Bitcoin. So as we can see here, the bull market support band is sitting right between 96.4K to 94.5K. I do think that Bitcoin will go and retest this level this summer. But as Bitcoin remains elevated, this bull market support band will likely continue to climb on higher, and we will test this at some point. The other reason why the mid 90K level is all important for Bitcoin is because if we zoom out here, you'll remember if you've been watching the channel, I talked about this as the key breakdown region. This is where Bitcoin chopped around for a very long time before making the aggressive move to 74.5K. And we also chopped around this region with a little bit of uncertainty before Bitcoin put in a new all-time high. So I think that over the course of this summer range, which you can finally see is starting to look like a range, we will find our way back over here in this mid 90K level. But in the short term here, I still think that there is upside for Bitcoin, and we could be going as high as $106,000. Now on the weekly time frame, yes, this is where the top of the body of that previous candle is, right around 105.6K. But if we were to zoom out and go on the daily, there's a chance that we also even get a wick up to these levels. Now, the reason why this is important again is because we're repeating the same kind of patterns that we've seen before. We pump, then we get rejected at key levels. 106.2K is a very important level, if you remember correctly, because we never got daily closes at that level when we set that previous all-time high. Then, when we set the new all-time high, it was very obvious we were gonna go there because we broke above 106.2K, held it as support. At that point, an all-time high was imminent. And you can see the kind of reaction that Bitcoin gets around this level time and time again. Once over here, we got a wick above the level, an immediate breakdown. Then we finally got a nice pump once again, targeting liquidity, and as you can see once again, a pretty aggressive candle here, which sent Bitcoin below 100K yesterday. So for now, I do think that we will be hovering within this range, and I'm not actually actively entering any kinds of trades quite yet. If you want to know when I do enter a trade though, you do have my free Telegram community, which again is the first link in my description down below. I also have some analysts that work with me trying to provide daily trading setups for those of you that like to trade often. So right here, this is a no trade zone for me, especially if I'm going long on Bitcoin. I'm actually starting to look a little bit more for shorts as I start to see more and more longs enter the market. Now, for me to justify a Bitcoin short, obviously there would have to be our key levels on the chart, 106.2K being one of them. However, I do want to see this turn around. I would want to see at least, at the bare minimum, an even amount of shorts and longs in the market. And right now, as there's $5 billion worth of cumulative long liquidation leverage and just over $12.5 billion worth of cumulative short liquidation leverage, there's still way more shorts in the market, so it would indeed be a risky short at this point. But you know my base case now. Yesterday, I told you I thought it was very likely that Bitcoin would be getting an aggressive bounce, and now I think that we are starting to establish our summer range. In the summer, we will see Bitcoin back below $100,000, probably in the mid 90K range. And as I said in one of my previous videos, maybe, just maybe, we get another nasty wick below the 90K level. The reason I'm saying that is because as we saw last summer, we did get that one nasty wick around the August timeline. So in August, or end of July, I do think that we will probably have the low before Bitcoin goes ahead and sets a new aggressive all-time high near the end of this year, and then it will actually be the bear market. And man, in my community, I cannot wait to try and short the top of this bull market. And just a quick look at ETH Bitcoin. With Bitcoin dominance going up, you can see that ETH Bitcoin is unfortunately going down. We got rejected at the bull market support band, which was my worry that we've been talking about for a few weeks. We got a beautiful pump here, and now I think it's time for ETH Bitcoin to probably trickle on lower and hopefully set a higher low as a base to go on and move higher, hold the bull market support band as support, and then we finally get some outperformance from ETH for a sustained period of time. And of course, this could trigger altcoin season after the summer period, in my opinion. Now let's quickly go over the news just to give you some quick insight as to what happened. I don't like talking about politics too much, so this will be quick. So Iran launched attacks targeting US military bases in both Iraq and Qatar. And we also have both Qatar and the UAE shutting down their airspace as Iran launches attacks at US military bases. This is affecting me because I'm currently in the UAE in Dubai, and I plan to go home for the summer to Canada. Unfortunately, I don't know if I'll be able to leave this country, at least not for the next few days. Also, we do have oil prices falling 3% as Iran launches missiles at US bases in Qatar. The market is pricing out uncertainty as Iran responds. All signs continue to point towards a short-lived war. And this is what we've been talking about. It was also in line with our thesis as to why Bitcoin would likely get a little bit of a bounce here. It was all of the short liquidity. It was the fair value gap. And of course, we know that typically these kinds of wars, if they're short-lived, are inherently bullish. Now, if we continue looking at the news quickly, of course, Trump had to talk about this. He responded to Iran's attack on the US's military bases. Perhaps Iran can now proceed to peace and harmony in the region, and I will enthusiastically encourage Israel to do the same. Once again, we maintain our view that Iran's response was de-escalatory. Iran has officially responded to our obliteration of their nuclear facilities with a very weak response, which we expected and have been effectively countered. There have been 14 missiles fired, 13 were knocked down, and 1 was set free because it was headed in a non-threatening direction. I am pleased to report that no Americans were harmed and hardly any damage was done. Most importantly, they've gotten it all out of their system and there will hopefully be no further hate. I want to thank Iran for giving us early notice, which made it possible for no lives to be lost and nobody to be injured. Iran actually let the US know that they were going to target one of their military bases. Perhaps Iran can now proceed to peace and harmony in the region, and I will enthusiastically encourage Israel to do the same. Thank you for your attention to this matter, Donald Trump. And he came out and said, "Congratulations, world, it's time for peace." Okay, so we looked at the charts and we covered the news briefly. Now, let's talk about accumulation, because Metaplanet just bought another 1,111 Bitcoin worth $111 million. They now hold 11,111 Bitcoins worth $1.1 billion. Now, it's interesting because Strategy also acquired some Bitcoin, but this time they only acquired 245 Bitcoins for around $26 million. Now, if you've come to know how Michael Saylor accumulates Bitcoin, he tends to accumulate more aggressively near the tops. And as we can see here, we got a nice correction, and for some reason, he only accumulated $26 million worth of Bitcoin. Sure, over here, he did buy some Bitcoin around 104K, 105K, 106K, but why didn't he buy some when we were back below $100,000 again? As you can see, he just keeps on accumulating, and right now he is still up 42% all time with a total profit of over $17.5 billion. Let's see how this continues to develop. I do think that in the bear market, this guy is going to be struggling, and I'll make sure to keep you updated on how his portfolio is looking. And to wrap up this video, Bitcoin dominance, as we can see, oh, would you look at that? The weekly candle is red, guys. We're going to get an altcoin season. No, don't fall for it this time. I can assure you that this candle will likely reverse, and if not this one, then at least the next week's candle as we go ahead and go into this range above 66% dominance, and then we will likely find our way closer and closer to 70% before we finally go towards the end of the year and have a proper altcoin season with hopefully more favorable monetary policy. And last thing here, let's take a look at the Bitcoin chart. As we can see, we are now within this range that I established, and I will make sure to keep you updated on if this summer range will continue as we're seeing now. It does make sense though, because most of the summer ranges tend to chop around in a little bit of a downtrend, and then towards the end of the summer is when we get that aggressive move to the upside. But we can expect to touch the top of this range several times, and of course I will make sure to keep you updated. Ultimately, if you entered that Bitcoin long yesterday right below $99,000, congratulations, because you're likely in some significant profits as long as you paid attention to that video. And that sums up today's video. Yesterday, we really made an epic call and Bitcoin got a massive bounce. Now, I want to remind you that I do not have a crystal ball. No one can tell you with absolute certainty where Bitcoin is headed. However, we just look at the probabilities, and yesterday it was highly likely that we were going to move higher. Now that we've already moved higher, I wouldn't be aggressive in going long, even though Bitcoin can continue to trickle on higher. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.